Well, hey there. Welcome back to the live stream here for SideFest Northwest. It's been a fun weekend of programming, and I've got something really special. This is an example of something where there's just this convergence of different events that could have only happened at this particular time. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mike. I'm the host of the Mike Cyber Radio podcast. And today we are going to be talking about IDW's Transformers issue number 21. That is on the stands. You can buy it online, get it wherever you can get your comic books. And joining me on the panel are the artists of this issue. There are two artists in two separate kind of converging stories, but they're both from right here in the Pacific Northwest. And I talked about convergence because the issue just came out. It's SideFest weekend. Both artists are from the Pacific Northwest area. Oh yeah, and they're both making their debut on the official Transformers comic book, in the same issue, in the issue that just came out. So my head is just swimming with all of the various coincidences. So I do want to welcome to the show, returning after Saturday's Transformers the movie panel, artist Blacky Shepard. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. It is a sunny Sunday, and I'm excited to be talking about Transformers and comic books, and because I know there's some really cool stories to be had with regards to this issue. Also joining us on the stream, and I'm really excited to talk to them because I haven't talked to Billy since last year's TFCon in Toronto. And one of the things I want to talk about is kind of like closing loops and kind of getting those opportunities. But I'm getting a little far ahead of myself, as is my typical fashion. Billy Montfort, aka CosmicDanger, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
All right, so we talked a little bit about these different coincidences and convergences. I have met each of you individually. Blacky, we've hung out a number of times on a number of podcasts and at conventions and things like that. Billy, like I had just mentioned, I ran into you in Artist Alley at TFCon Toronto. Had no idea you were from the Pacific Northwest area, and we spent half of our interview talking about SideFest in the Pacific Northwest. So things just kind of come back around. But I guess my first question is, I've met you, but have you met each other?
No, this is the first time I'm seeing Billy. Back.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Hi, Billy.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Well, how are you?
So we're all joining together through the power of comic books and Transformers, and I love it. So we talked. One of the thrusts of this panel discussion is artists from the Pacific Northwest debuting in the official Transformers comic. So for me, I was born in Seattle. I was born at Seattle Children's, but I'm from Linwood, and currently I live in SeaTac. But we've had those conversations where at either a convention or at an airport, it's like, hey, where are you from? You can't say I'm from Linwood. You say you're from Seattle. So let's get a little more granular. And Billy, we'll start with you. So where are you from, and what's your connection to the Pacific Northwest area?
I am from Bremerton, and I've been living here, I don't know, the last 10 years or so. There was a brief period in there for like almost a year where I was living in North Carolina, but it's mostly been up here. My parents moved us up here when we were kids to be closer to family, and it's just, I don't know. I really like it here, and I can't imagine living anywhere else.
That's kind of my experience as well. How about you, Blackie?
I was actually born and raised in Southern California. I moved from Southern California. I joined the service. I was in Alaska for a few years, and then I moved to Seattle initially in 2001 to attend the Art Institute in Seattle.
Okay.
And then I kind of fell in love with the Pacific Northwest. I had lived here briefly when I should have been going to high school. Uh, and I remembered liking it, but when I moved here the second time, it was kind of everything that I loved about living in Alaska, but not so remote and not so expensive, only mildly less expensive. And so, yeah, I just fell in love with it, and I've been here since. So I guess after nearly 20 years, I'm allowed to call myself a Pacific Northwesterner. I, like you said, I always described myself as a Seattle-based artist, but I haven't lived in Seattle for 3 years. Now I live in Tacoma, and then moving to another place here in Tacoma. But it's, Seattle is just a much more recognizable name than Tacoma, for the broad spectrum of people.
Right.
So I still call myself a Seattle-based artist.
Absolutely, and again, like I said, it's kind of that touchstone that we can all. It's easier, Again, I'm from Seattle, but again, once you meet one of your like kind, where they say they're from Seattle, also, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Oh, I'm from Linwood. Oh, hey, I'm from Everett. I'm from Lake Stevens. That kind of area. So that's so working backwards. Just trying to be economical with our time. We are talking about the new issue of Transformers, issue number 21. I'm going to hold it up again because I love this Casey Collar cover so much, and in fact, I think my favorite part here.
Good.
Is these guys right here, Frenzy and Rumble as boy band punks. That's kind of my favorite thing. But I mean, you got Rage and Quake and all kinds of cool obscure characters in there as well. So the issue has been out for a week now. So it's had some time to kind of be in the consciousness. Let's start with Blacky. What's been the response so far? What's been the reaction to the book in terms of like?
Everybody that I've spoken to seems to like it. I've read a couple of reviews. I tend not to read reviews because I'm way too self-conscious for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've read a couple of reviews where they've all been for the most part very good, at least with respect to the art. With Transformers, there's a certain group of fans that just for some reason don't want to accept what IDW is doing right now.
Yeah.
But I found that to be really rare. 95% of the people I've spoken to or read online all seem to really like everything. So yeah, and the people that I've spoken to individually all seem to, they're proud of me for being on the book, which is nice, and they've been very complimentary of the art.
Gotcha. How about you, Billy?
I haven't read any reviews because, like Blacky, I'm also very self-conscious about my work, and I just, don't want to deal with that. But my friends like it, and I had to walk my mom through how to order comic books through the local comic store.
Oh, that's funny.
Because she wanted to get like 7 different copies and send them all to the family and make sure that everyone knew that I had been working on a comic book. So,
Billy, is this your
fun.
professional work, like in a comic? Oh, congratulations!
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I did one other cover before doing the interiors, and that was for Transformers versus Terminator number 4, I think. So, but yeah, so it's pretty exciting.
Which that's interesting because I don't think that book is actually dropped yet. I don't know if
No.
number 4 has actually come out, and I remember you tweeting about that cover, and I was
Hmm.
super excited because when we met at TFCon Toronto, one of the things you had shared with me is I asked you about kind of like goals, what's the dream, and you're like,
Hmm.
you know, I'd really like to do a cover, maybe some interiors, but I'd really like to get into cover art. And here we are a
Hmm.
year later, and now you done both. So
Yes.
congratulations on that. And so yeah, it's just when I don't want to necessarily get into a tangent that we can't pull ourselves out of with regards to talking about IDW2 and what the company is doing with the book. But one thing I will say, Mike Seibert's hot take is that I love the new opportunities for new voices and new artists
Hmm.
and opportunities for folks like yourselves that might not have had that opportunity in the previous iteration. So if
Right.
I feel like it's a fair trade-off for my friends to get opportunities that are new and exciting. And I love that we're getting all of these different styles of art, and I appreciate that fan artists, much like
Hmm.
Cosmic Danger, are getting their shot at official work. But then likewise, comics veterans like Blacky, who's done tons of licensed work, like on Voltron and Vampirella and Reanimator and things like that they're getting their shot also. I just think it's awesome.
I'm
Hmm.
first. I just got to say I'm a huge fan of all of IDW's Transformers stuff. I was buying it long before I
Right.
had a chance of working at Dynamite, or I'm sorry, at IDW.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I really like the writing, I like the idea of going back to the beginning, and but I liked it before they did the shakeup. So
Yeah.
in the previous iteration of the stuff, I think they've always gotten fantastic artists. I became a huge Livio Ramondelli fan. That work is some of the best work of all time. Every time I'm at a convention where they're at, I make a point of stopping by the desk and drooling all over their
Yeah.
beautifully laid out art. And yeah, the one of the things that I most appreciate about IDW's approach is A, the writing is fantastic. B, they always get, regardless of the disparity in styles, they always seem to get really, really, really good artists. Either from a
Hmm.
storytelling point of view, which Transformers is a little bit hard on panel to panel storytelling, um, especially if you're a detail oriented artist.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then to the writing, to bringing in or retaining some of the high end veterans, like I'm thinking of Alex Milne, uh, and oh man, is his name John Griffin? I just
Andrew.
recently,
Andrew Griffin.
yeah, like I told Andrew on Twitter, like his art was stuff that I looked at, as the standard to which I had to hold my own art. Not to say that I'm doing work that is as high quality as his, but
Mm-hmm.
I've got to at least feel like I've tried to put in that kind of effort.
Mm-hmm.
Same with
Mm-hmm.
Milne. Those are the artists that I look at, and Anna Malkova. I mean, it's just, there's so many great
Hmm.
artists, that it's hard to say, this one or that one or this one. It's you kind of hope that you're aiming to be in that echelon.
Yeah. Well, and how about you, Billy? How's I mean, you in the big leagues now. I mean, obviously you're a prolific fan artist with a great following. But yeah,
Hmm.
you're in this company now.
I try not to think about it a whole lot because then I just get like overwhelmed
Sure.
because it's just like, oh wow, because there's so many great artists, and I have, um, like I remember that Milne's art was actually what kind of got me to start reading Transformers,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just been so much uh great stuff, and it's hard to think of myself as being like a part of that now,
Yeah.
because it's a lot.
It's a lot of awesome. So let's so
Yes.
let's wind the clocks back and
Mhm.
I feel like there's a story here. How did we get here? Like did either of you know that the other was working on the book? I'm not sure who I need to hit up, but I'm very curious about one, how each of you got on the book, and then if there's some kind of connection or story how you ended up both making the debut together. That I just find that endlessly intriguing.
As far as I kind of have kept my head in the sand for the last several months. And so I was unaware of Billy's work until such time as I saw their work, or saw that they were mentioned, uh, as being in the same issue as me. Uh, when I uh, when I found that out, and I found out that they were doing their debut in that issue as well, I just thought, wow, that's a crazy coincidence. As far as how I arrived at IDW, I I started chasing IDW really hard once they got the ROM license, the Micronauts license, the Mask license,
Yeah.
and they already had Transformers and GI Joe. So all of those, I'm of the right age, right? So that I remember rolling home from school, I think in fourth grade, waiting for the debut episode of the Transformers limited cartoon to come on, right? So I'm squarely in that age bracket. So I just started. It was actually at WonderCon. I met one of the people who was an editor on their books lines,
Mm.
and he saw a piece of my Voltron work, and we started talking about that. He introduced me to Tom, one of the editors there, who then introduced me to David, and things. It started off doing a GI Joe cover, and then I did a couple of Transformers covers, and then this.
Mhm.
How about you, Billy?
Cool.
How'd you get here?
Well, I think it was like portfolio day, and David actually put
Okay.
up a tweet on his Twitter, that said, hey, drop your portfolios here. And I have a good friend of mine who says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I was so nervous, but I just, kind of closed my eyes and submitted it anyway. And
Yeah.
I had my fingers crossed, but I wasn't really expecting anything to come of it. And then a while later, I got an email, and it was David asking, "Hey, do you have time to do a Transformers, versus Terminator cover?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. Do I?"
That's awesome. So based
Mhm.
on your work on the cover, then that became like, hey man, we have another half of a story for you to
Mhm.
fill in on.
I
That's so
think
cool.
so. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, and it's interesting because I like how in the issue your different art styles complement the different tones of the story. Like, you've
Mhm.
got the geology team and then you've got the folks on Cybertron. So it tonally works. Whereas I think if your art styles were more similar, I think it would be less distinctive. And I think I've seen that with other
Mhm.
pairings in other issues. So I liked how that all turned out. So getting to the issue, what kind of challenges did you encounter doing interiors for the official Transformers book for the first time?
I don't know about Blacky, but I really struggled with um there's a specific issue that comes with drawing Transformers where you have like an idea of a pose in your head that would work so good like with the composition, but it's like, but does a Transformer actually bend that way? Can you make them stand in that pose and have it look realistic and like something they could actually do? And then trying to find, room for all their kibble and accoutrements,
Yeah.
and fit them in like panels together. That was a struggle too.
Yeah, I run into a very similar problem. I had some experience with that problem from drawing Voltron, because
Hmm.
he's got a very unique anatomy that precludes a lot of different poses unless you kind of cheat and have certain parts of his body clipping with other parts of his body. And if
Mhm.
you draw it from the right angle, you can cheat a little bit. Um, Now,
Yeah.
with the Transformers, one challenge is just you've got a bunch of characters on screen or on the page at any one
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like all of my pages, aside from the
Hmm.
first two, I think, had like every panel was a group of Transformers. You know what I mean? And so that's just, and especially being a detail nerd, that just meant a lot of time
Hmm.
drawing, like Billy says, kibble. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and beyond that, working their anatomies in, because Billy's absolutely right. There are certain poses that unless you cheat a whole lot, you just aren't going to be able to get them into, right. And so
Hmm.
because certain parts you can't bend, you have to show
Yeah.
that that's rigid metal as opposed to bendy metal,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
so that creates a challenge from a storytelling point of view, because you can lay out the thumbnails and try to tell the story in as visually compelling a way as possible, but then you realize, oh man, I can't really show that character from that angle because that would reveal that they can't actually bend that way. And so you've kind of got to go
Hmm.
each panel to panel, like from the drawing board, and figure out, like I had to do like 3D renderings kind of in my head. I even used my toys and would like kind of try to figure out the best angle for
Hmm.
them, so I could figure out, okay, where am I going to be showing their best side?
Yeah.
Interesting. So
Hmm.
as a,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was about to say I did the same thing too, where I found some of my toys, and I'm like, all right, let's see what we can do here.
Well,
Just.
and one thing that's interesting about the IDW comics is how very close to the toys they are. In a
Hmm.
way that I don't know if the previous iteration was, but it is an interesting
Well,
change.
that's the current mandate, is because it's so closely tied to the siege line. Any characters that have
Hmm.
appeared in the siege line, we had to use the siege iteration of that character. Now, some characters in the book have not appeared in the siege line yet, and so that was actually something that tied up a lot of my time. Which I don't know if David is watching this, but we won't have this problem next time, I promise. But that tied up a lot of my time, was figuring out which version of the character to use as reference, so I could figure out, like that Casey Collar cover. I
Hmm.
used enormously for reference because I figure if that's the cover, then that's the version of the character that they want in the
Hmm.
book. I actually drew, what's the name of the Golden Fang, or the
Right.
lion? Yeah, I drew him completely wrong. I drew it as a bipedal figure, as the most recent toy was, but they wanted something closer to G1.
Hmm.
Okay.
Right.
So time is a precious thing that we are running out of. So as we get ready to close out,
This was short.
yeah, this is a very short one. We've
Yeah.
got another panel right behind us, but very quickly, thing we got in the chat. What is your favorite character to draw? Have you had a chance to draw them professionally? And then from there, let's go ahead and lock out with how we can find your work online and how we can connect with you on the social medias. Blacky, let's go ahead and start with you.
Okay, so like I put in the chat, my favorite Autobot is Hound. My favorite Decepticon is Shockwave. I really love the IDW version of Shockwave, where he was one thing before, and then they took his head off and replaced it with and that robbed him of any possible moral convictions.
Yeah.
I so badly want to draw Shockwave, and no, I haven't had the chance to draw either of those characters yet. But I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I'll get one shortly. And then online, you can find me on Twitter at CQShep. At CQShep, which is my website as well, www.cqshep.com. And then on the Instagrams, I am ArtDevil313.
Excellent, and thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate chatting with you. It's always a pleasure. Billy, how about you? Real quick, favorite character
Um,
to draw?
okay. Favorite character, Whirl. Love that guy. Doesn't matter what iteration. Love him. Uh, see, you can find me um, on Twitter at CosmicDanger Zone, and that's pretty much all I use. Oh, going back, no, I have not drawn him professionally yet, but I would love to.
But you've done prints of him, so
Yes, yeah, fan art of him. I've done fan art of him.
yeah.
Oh, for me, also
Right.
Chromia and Windblade and Moonracer. I really want to do like a Charlie's theme book of the three. You know what I mean? I think David's probably tired of me sending him emails begging for that, but I'm going to continue to send them because I want to draw that.
Very cool. And Billy, you got all of your contact info out. You're at Cosmic Danger Zone out on Twitter. Any other places you can direct folks to check out your wonderful, awesome
I have
arts?
a website. Yeah, website at bmontfort.com.
Excellent. Very cool. Well, again, folks, thank you so much for taking the time to join me, and my apologies to the mods for going over here. But I am at Mike Seibert Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you so much for joining us, and stick around because my buddy Yoshi has got an awesome panel coming up about a fan fiction project that he's been working on that actually has a genesis as a proposed IDW Comics project. So you'll want to stick around for that. That is a lot of fun. But for the panel here, my name is Mike. And until next time, wash your hands, wear your mask, and make good choices.